farmers in the area. Thank you for this opportunity to come together and join and help us make some good decisions for the county and the people that we represent. In your name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The eagle was in timeout. He was.
That's kind of what it looked like.
All right. That brings us up to public comment. Anyone wish to address the board at this time?
Good morning.
Good morning, Chris.
I'm Chris Shano, Court Administrator at 2nd District Court. I just wanted to make you all aware of the job fair that we have going on tomorrow from 4 to 6. It's open to the public. We have 6 for sure. I know we're working towards having up to maybe 10 employers come. And it'll be on McCollum Street, next door to between the annex and the courthouse. And like I said, it's open to the public. Anyone that's looking for a job is welcome to come. So if you know of anyone that needs employment. So, do you have any questions?
There's going to be 6 employers there?
At least 6. We're hoping for 10. I was going to check with Hannah before I left, and I got tied up in a meeting before I left, so I didn't get the final numbers from her, but I know she was still working on getting a few more employers to come. So it was very successful for us last time, so we're hoping for success again this time.
Good,
So,
good.
thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Okay. Moving right along, consent agenda. Would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Sport.
Moved and supported. Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Correspondence is listed. Any comments on correspondence?
I was going to say something about this letter that Marnie sent out yesterday. It wasn't in our packet, you know, because it just came yesterday.
Yes.
The American Planning Association.
Yes.
And I thought this was really good. And I sent it to Jack Mosley. I forwarded it to Jack Mosley. But, you know, I think the whole planning commission should read this and should look at it.
I
thought
plan
it
on
was really
sharing it
good.
with everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've had at least one of these workshops at the library before in Hillsdale when Alan Beaker was chair. Because I remember because I went to at least one of them.
Okay.
So I know we've had them before in Hillsdale. So they're good to have in the wintertime, not the summer.
No.
But anyways, I thought that was good.
Yeah. It looks like there's some good information
Yeah.
available there.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess. Yeah. Was there any questions on the medical examiner's report? I think I sent that out and I know it's in the packet, but.
Yeah, and I sent out the inspection report for May, so.
Yeah, okay.
I had to call the medical examiner's office because somebody who works at the hospital got on my suicide prevention coalition, and she was asking for statistics for Hillsdale County
Okay.
suicides, how many and different things
You
like
talked
that.
to Sarah?
So I called Sarah and
Okay.
she sent me a chart and everything, so it's all good.
Good.
Yeah.
She's pretty helpful.
She's pretty
She's got a
good.
lot of information.
Yes. There were 8, according to what Sarah sent me. Now, they go by the death certificates. They go
Right.
by what's recorded on the death certificate. There were 8 suicides in Hillsdale County in last year, which was 2018.
Okay.
Now, you know, we don't always know for sure
Right.
that it's a suicide, and it's not always, even if it was, it might not have been recorded as such, but according to their records, there was 8 last year.
Okay, if there's nothing else on correspondence, I'd entertain a motion to approve the regular agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any additions?
Yeah. 19078, Marty?
Yes.
I'd like to add resolution 19078 to the agenda, I guess under my bailiwick.
Okay.
What's a bailiwick?
Whatever.
Bruce gets well word.
I've heard it before.
I have too.
His bundle of stuff.
There you go.
Okay, I don't think we got a motion yet, did we?
Yes, we did.
Oh, okay.
Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Shaw, seconded it.
Thank you.
So, do we have to have a new thing to amend it, accept the amended?
Yes.
The addition.
Second.
Yeah. So I make the motion that we accept the amended, agenda, regular agenda.
And I will support that.
Okay. Any other additions?
Oh, no.
Okay, all those in favor of the regular agenda as amended, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, moving right along. So we have no standing order this morning, kind of right into committee reports. So Bruce, that brings you right up.
19075 to the Honorable Board of Commissioners, we recommend the attached Hillsdale County 2019-20 revised indigent defense budget be approved.
Support.
Now, basically, and they came in sideways on your computer there, but the trial college is for the new attorney. The MIDC requires that they be trained or go to these things to become supposedly sufficient in how to handle the indigent defense people. So that's $1,400, that's new money, that's new. The professional organizations that we had in place, this is kind of interesting. SADO, which is a professional organization for the appeals attorneys, that was reduced from 800 down to $200. So what you see in your budget's 200, that's gone down $600. NAPD, which is the National Association of Public Defenders, that was originally put in at 120, it's down to 80, so that got cut by $40. And then apparently there's a peeing match going on between the MIDC, the Indigent Defense Commission, and CDAM, which is the Criminal Defense Attorneys. And so the MIDC has taken it upon themselves to say they're not going to pay for any buddy to join the Criminal Defense Attorneys Association of Michigan, because the Criminal Defense Attorneys do not always support the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission when they're trying to get things done. Heaven forbid we should disagree with anybody, but they're not going to pay for it. So that's going to reduce that line, that takes that line down to 0, so that cuts 575 out of that line. Now this is all stuff I was told, I haven't checked any of this out. So the bottom line is, with the money that had to put in for the new attorney to go to trial college and the other reductions, this ends up being, we adopted this budget before, this ends up being $185 more than what we adopted before. Okay? And this has been approved by the state. Stopped in to see Kim, and Kim said, well, it's been approved. And I said, well, I haven't seen anything. And I said, I gotta see it in black and white. So she had the big tunky-tunk up there send me an email that said everything's copacetic. So we're gonna get money to put in a second room out at the jail. We're gonna get money to put in a second corrections officer out at the jail, plus all this other stuff that was in there. The final thing is, and I think you all got an email through, and this is nobody's fault, but now Barry Paulson, who we just hired to be on that outfit, he's gonna take all the arraignments. That's when the person first comes into court. He'll be there for all of that, which is originally the way it was when we started, and then it got changed because they couldn't get people to be there all the time with their private practices, and now it's going back to that. Barry can be there all the time because he doesn't have a private practice, so, I guess. So that'll get taken care of too, but that doesn't change the money aspect at all. So that's an explanation of this budget, so. Any questions?
Did we have a support?
Sorry I
Yes.
talked so long.
Okay, thank you.
You didn't talk long that time. I'm timing you.
Any questions on 19075? I think Bruce explained it pretty well. If there's no questions, then all those in favor of 19075 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 75 is approved. Please continue.
19076 amends Resolution 18030. To the Honorable Board of Commissioners, we, the Board of Commissioners, authorize the attached amended County of Hillsdale Asset Disposal Policy. Furthermore, the attached County of Hillsdale Asset Disposal Policy will be sent to every elected and department head official. The policy will also be available on the Hillsdale Message of the Day Employee News under Documents. Respectfully submitted, Bruce Caswell. I move for the adoption of this resolution.
Support.
Okay, Derek highlighted this for you so you can see what the changes are, but basically, once, on the first page, A, once an asset's been assessed and deemed reusable, the item shall be entered into the county's Message of the Day web presence to alert other county departments. And then in parentheses, specifically departments funded by the Hillsdale County General Fund. So that clarifies, if we spend any general fund money on them, then they are considered to be a county department. Okay? So that would exclude 911, it would exclude the medical care, parks would still be part of it.
Okay.
Who else?
Road Commission.
Road Commission.
Right.
The items are available for use. If the item was budgeted to be sold in our budget that we approve, the County Board of Commissioners must approve the transfer of the asset to another department. Okay? If after 14 days there's no need for county use, the items may be sold. And this gets back to something we dealt with, Tim, before you showed up, and maybe Julie before you did, is the fact that when revenue comes in, it has to be placed into a revenue account. So if we simply give this to another department and there's no revenue exchange, it's no problem. But if we give it to another department and that department pays something, that has to go into a revenue account. It cannot go into an expense account. And then down the road, if we want to take that money and allocate it to that department, we have to vote to do that, okay? It used to be these things were being done behind the scenes, and we put a stop to that because our auditors told us it was illegal. Derek, is that the only change in the asset disposal policy?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions? Just trying to clarify, because these things came up, and there'll probably be some other things we'll have to keep nudging this thing and working with it too.
I think what really prompted this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Derek, but the transfer or the sale of the truck that Randy had to medical care,
Yes.
has that been completed, do you know?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So, and that, this addresses that
Yep.
particular type of thing. So, it was still kept within the county government circle, but it's not one of the departments that we fund necessarily.
Correct.
So, okay. Any other questions or discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Please continue, Bruce.
Okay, 19077 amends Resolution 19062. To the Honorable Board of Commissioners, we recommend the adoption of the attached amended Hillsdale County travel policy and have it added to the policy and procedure guidelines. The travel policy should also be distributed to every department head and placed on the Message of the Day. Respectfully submitted, Bruce Caswell. I move for adoption of this.
Support.
Now, the change in this thing was on the first page there, meals when traveling outside of Hillsdale County. The county will reimburse $35 per individual per day for business that requires overnight travel. The second bullet point, the county will reimburse one meal up to $15, including the tip associated with the meal, when the employee returns the same day. So you get a one-time deal. And then the third one, the county will not reimburse any meals when a meal is provided by the conference or training unless special circumstances exist. And that's, I don't know, if you gotta eat gluten-free or, can't have whatever they're serving, something like that, then we will. Derek, is there anything else in there that got changed besides that?
Yeah, the fifth bullet point is new.
The fifth one,
Yes. Under meals.
under meals? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay. Oh, yes, each department head or elected official has the discretion to lower these rates of reimbursement as they see fit, but not to increase the rates of reimbursement. So if it's a situation where you don't need to spend that much, they can lower it, but they can't go more than this.
Sounds good.
I'm really disappointed about the alcohol, because sometimes you need it when you're at these things. Just saying. I'll pay for it myself.
Yes, you
Okay. Any other comments, non-related to alcohol?
Sleeping pill works just as well.
All right, if there's no other discussion on this resolution, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Please continue.
Okay, then the next one, 19078, to the Honorable Board of Commissioners, we recommend authorizing the Chairman of the Board of Commissioners, Mark E. Wiley, to sign the second amended arraignment attorney services contract. As of July 1st, 2019 through September 30th, 2019, Attorney Barry F. Paulson shall be compensated as the arraignment attorney pursuant to the terms of the attached agreement. And the agreement's below, and it's pretty standard language.
Support.
So I move for the adoption of this resolution, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I thought you were going to say that.
Any questions on this?
Pretty straightforward. And I think you mentioned it earlier as well, but for some reason my screen's blank, but I have looked at it. Oh, I did have a question. I don't know why, Ruth, you got it printed? Because I don't know why this thing's not opening up. So this says as of July 1st through September 30th.
Fiscal year, I think.
Is that because of a fiscal year's, or?
No, I think it was just to take account that after this meeting is over with, July 1st starts a work week, and at that point in time, he'll start doing all the arraignments, rather than having them split them up.
But
Why does it-
I guess my question is why is it
Because
only through
state's
September
fiscal year.
30th?
I think it's the state.
That's the state's fiscal year.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
The
okay,
state's fiscal year ends then, and then we have to
okay,
it becomes he's
Thank
getting
you.
paid, and then it goes on to the new state contract.
Okay.
October 1 starts their new fiscal year.
so if he's gonna continue it in October, we'll do another resolution at that point in time?
Correct.
Okay, fine. That was the question I had.
Okay.
All right, very good, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else on 078? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? 78 passes. Please continue, Bruce.
Okay, a county employee come up and talked to me yesterday, when I brought the car back, about, are we gonna have another HSA meeting? Because she said there's a lot of other employees that want to sit down like we did
On the 18th.
on the 18th or
The 18th's when we had the one-on-ones.
Okay, I didn't know, so, all right, so we are gonna have another one, okay.
Well, we've already had it, but are we scheduling another one, Derek?
We haven't as of right now.
That's what she said. She said not everybody was able to come in and sit down, and there's a lot of other people that are very interested that want to come in and sit down and understand how it's going to affect them. So she wanted to know if we're going to have another meeting.
Do you have that employee's name?
Yeah, I should know it. She's one of the janitors.
One of the janitors,
Deb?
probably Deb.
Is it
She
Deb?
works for Sid.
Yeah, it's Deb.
Beth?
Deb.
Deb? Okay. Deb's the one that came to me. She said there was a lot of sheriff's employees. She said there were a lot of employees over in the courthouse, the courts that didn't get to it because there wasn't room, that everything was filled up. Now, I'm just saying what she told me. I have no idea.
We can do another one. We had about 50 people sign up.
It's a lot.
And it was pretty it kind of got thrown together last minute. We did get representation from every department for the most part. But we did run out of slots.
Okay,
I think we should schedule another one.
Let's-
I mean, if people want to know, then we
Yep.
should do that.
but,
And there was one question that arose too, I think is legit concern. Apparently HSA, you can't use HSA funds on dependents that are claimed under someone else's tax IDs. So this becomes a situation with divorce and stepkids. You can use the insurance, like if you have a stepchild whose mother claims the kid on their tax ID, you can't use the HSA dollars for their deductible reimbursement, but you can use the insurance on them. So it's kind of like a convoluted little area there that no one ever kind of thought about until we started asking these questions. So,
right,
I mean, that's what happens when you have these meetings, you find out how it
Yeah.
affects every person, so.
well, and I think that's why it's important that we do these scenarios where people are asking specific questions about their specific situation.
Right.
So, yeah, if you could shoot John another email and let's see if we can't get another one set up as soon as possible. You know, because if there's still questions out there, we need to get them answered.
Right.
So, all right, thank you, Derek. Okay,
Okay?
we'll work
I
on
want to read you this email. This is what I got from the big cheeses up at the Indigent
it.
Defense
Oh,
Commission.
okay,
Hello, Bruce. I wanted to pass along the good news that Hillsdale County's MIDC plan and cost analysis for fiscal year '20 were both approved at this week's commission meeting. Congrats. Next month, your county will receive a mailing from our executive director to formally notify you of this decision, explain the status of appropriations, and provide upcoming contract information. In the meantime, I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns about implementation of your current plan. So they approved us getting this, because we asked for more money. They approved it. But you need to understand, the legislature allocates the amount of money they got to work with. And if they don't allocate enough money, then some of this stuff may not happen. We just got to wait. And it looks like the budget up there isn't going to get done till maybe clear the end of September. So,
It's too bad.
okay? So that's where we're at. I just wanted to read that to you so you know. Derek, why don't you come up and go over your expenditure report while he's walking up.
Should he
Basically,
fold
we
that
went
in?
from a
Okay,
little
so
bit
we put
over
in-
2%
Yeah.
ahead of the game. Now we're a little bit below 1%.
Hey,
So we spent a lot of
Bruce,
money.
let me interject for just a moment.
Yeah,
If you would, please email that email you just read to Marnie so she can put it in part of the records.
all right. Now I want it noted at this point in time that I am attempting to forward this. So I hit the little arrow button, then I hit the little forward, and I put M, and it says cast, so I do that.
Yeah.
And then I hit send. We hear the little swooshy sound.
Yes.
It went somewhere.
It did. It's into space.
Okay.
Hopefully she'll get it.
All right,
I'm not as technologically stupid as rumors have it.
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I got it, believe it or not.
She got it, Bruce. It
She
traveled
got
up to her already.
Miracles never cease.
You're amazing.
Oh, you got one?
I have one, yeah.
Yeah, I have another.
Now, Derek, before you get started, I have a question on the last line item, contingency. We're budgeted 20. The activity for May was 4340. Should not the available balance be 11,740?
That is correct.
Okay. Y'all catch that? Okay, go ahead.
All right, so a lot of these are similar to always, so I'll try to breeze by those unless you have specific questions. Board of Commissioners funds overbalance a little bit. Obviously, that's driven by the legal fees, same as it's been the last few months. You know, this one's it's getting a little bit more in line each month as that as the impact of the early expenditure gets spread out, but it's still at risk for being a little bit over budget. Finance Department, my budget has almost zero wiggle room. It's strictly my wages for the most part. There's a little bit other into it. And I had to go pick up the county vehicle from Marshall and pay for the gas. And in May, there was 3 pay periods, so that kind of just, the timing of it skews it a little bit. But I'll be really close to hitting my bottom line within a few $100s probably. IT is paid 73% of their maintenance contracts. That's what's skewing it.
And I think last month, I looked back, and if I remember right, I think Dave had purchased 48% of the maintenance contract. So he bought a lot of, he had to renew a lot of them in the last month, and that's why it looks so bad.
Treasurer's Department had a $1,052 dog license expense in May. That's about what their budget is. I think their budget's like $1,500 or $1,600. So that one expense, you know, kind of makes it look like it's over, but they're really tracking on every line item. MSU Co-op, same as always. They pay their rent and their contract in advance of the quarter and of the month.
So that really should be at 50%. We've paid 50%.
Right.
So we're a little bit ahead on them. Okay.
Elections Department, they used all of their printing and binding budget, which is like $25,000, I believe. So assuming there's no more printing and binding necessary, it'll come in really close as time progresses.
Come back in line. Marnie?
We have the 911 and they'll be paying for all the ballots, but I pay for that up front and they'll reimburse. I did send out a guideline to all of these cities and townships as to what they need to bill back to 911. Because I did not and will not include the meals. I don't think that 911 needs to be buying meals that they, because some of your townships will buy meals, you know, for their inspectors. Others will have potlucks, but I don't feel it's Doug's job in 911 to purchase meals for the inspectors. So I just laid some guidelines down.
Good.
So.
Drain Commission, they used all of their equipment.
Register deeds.
Or sorry, RODs used all of their equipment rental storage budget. Again, that's a large chunk at once. Plus, you see a lot of them are super close to the 41.67%. Again, there's 3 pay periods in May, so that skews it a little bit too. Bus Garage has used Drain Commission has used contractual services, and utilities are a little bit higher than projected. Again, all of it's really close. None of it's really concerning. DHS maintenance building, we allocate health insurance payments to this account so that we can get reimbursed for DHS at the end of the year. And there's been 6 payments for health insurance throughout the year. So that's what's pushing that over the edge. Courthouse office building maintenance. This actually is tracking a little bit over budget. There's been some, I think, unforeseen expenses. I think the elevator needed a little bit of work at one point. I know Randy's been looking at purchasing shades as people are blinded at their computers as they try to work, little things like that. Where are we at? Department of Public Works, again, this is strictly payroll that's hitting this budget. So 3 pay periods in May pushes it over a little bit, but it should track out right at budget. Lifeways building maintenance, elevator contracts like $3,000, that was paid in May. Health insurance has paid 6 months of the year, plus the HRA budget's tracking a little bit high at 55% of the budget, but that's a little bit more in line than it was last month. So as we see the usage maybe curb a little bit, the HRA budget might come more in line. Either way, we're tracking under budget on our health insurance total.
And I looked at those three, I added them up, and looked at what we should have been spending and what we were, and for the three combined together, we're about $1,800 more right now than we should be. Is what I figured, if I figured it right. Now, I could have screwed something up, but hopefully I didn't.
General insurance gets paid biannually. I think you actually are about to approve, or maybe you already did, one of those payments today. Miscellaneous, we've already spent it. There's nothing else to spend there. I think the main thing that hits it is the flags from the Kiwanis Club. And equipment. So equipment has had 3 lease payments already, and which make up a huge chunk of the budget. And the purchase of the vehicle for the sheriff's department from Lenawee County, that was $9 grand. That was not budgeted. We will pick up the revenue from the insurance company on the other side. So when we do budget amendments, those will offset.
Okay?
Derek, can you re-explain the flags from the Kiwanis Club? The constituent asked me about that.
The what?
The flags.
We pay a Kiwanis Club to put up flags, I think at Memorial Day.
No, they put them up,
Several times.
they put them up several times during the year.
Okay. The
They-
ones on the poles? Oh,
They're the ones that are on the poles that are around the courthouse, yes.
okay.
That's what those are. I think it's $35 a pop, a flag. Now, Derek, we talked the other day about something, and help me remember because I don't, about we get this reimbursement back through, 65,000 this past year, we're gonna get back, and we always put it into the general fund. What was that?
So yeah, we're still working on that a little bit. Essentially, we get money back from MMRMA every year. It could be different,
Yeah.
it could be zero. We don't know what it's gonna be. We do budget a small amount, or, based on average of what we've gotten. But we did find out that we don't have to receipt that money into our general fund. We can have MMRMA keep it and put it into our, I think it's called a stop loss fund. And that money goes towards paying and settling lawsuits as they come up. And we have to keep a certain amount of money in that fund at all times. And if we get low, then MMRMA will start requesting, a lump sum payment to get us up to a threshold that is allowable. So that's kind of the gist of it. So I've talked with Bruce and Mark about potentially to stop budgeting to get that money and start receiving it and start moving as much of it as we can into that stop loss fund. And then that could have an impact on our normal premium too. We might not need to allocate, I think we do 50 grand a year.
Yes.
We might be able to do less than that at some point if we get that fund a little more healthy, but it's always on the verge of being at that threshold, at least as of the last couple of years, so.
Also, that's not all county money, part of it's medical care money.
Right.
And that's the other thing that Commissioner Caswell and I talked about. If we're going to start foregoing that check and putting it into the stop loss, we might want to ask medical care to do the same. So, all that stuff's still kind of being worked on. It's pretty early.
But right now, we're allocating our budget $50,000 to dump into this fund. Okay, then we get a check back from them. This year it was about 65,000.
But not all of it's county.
I got that. We get 65,000 back, okay? And so the question that I raised, I said, well, what sense does it make to allocate it and then get this back and put it back over in the budget side? Why don't we just take this check and put in? Well, the other piece of this is we're responsible for keeping up to $250,000 in this pot. And if it gets below half of that, if it goes below 125,000, then we get nasty emails from MMRMA telling us the world's going to end if we don't send them money immediately. Okay, so you want to keep it above 125,000. Okay, right now it's at 130, and we're getting ready to dump in 25,000 because we make 2 payments a year with it. So the thought was to simplify the whole budget process, just this money that we're getting returned to us, just have them keep it, put it into our account, which would take it up to, what, 195,000, and reduce greatly the amount that we put into the budget over in the budget side of things. Reduce that amount, because it's kind of an in and out deal right now, and it just complicates things. So that's what we're talking about doing for next year. We're not gonna do anything for this year, but for next year. And as Derek said, with the medical care facility, they're in the same boat.
Yeah.
You gotta pay one way or another, and if that comes back, then we can keep track of how much of that we put in is theirs, how much of it is ours, and then if bills do come, we can, allocate them out appropriately. So if you think about it, if you see any problems with changing it, let me know. You said that Gary never wanted to take that check that came back and just give it back to him. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yeah.
That was his understanding, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Gary about why, but
Stephanie, does medical care have their own fund balance? I mean, like ours?
It's 72 for us, 28% for them, is what the premium payout
Right,
is.
but there's just one pot.
So-
just one pot?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this year, when speaking with Derek, we put half of it back. And so we're gonna get 31,725, I believe,
Okay.
to divide between us.
And you never know how much you're gonna get back, but it's usually a decent amount. So,
Yeah, I think it behooves us to talk to medical care. Do you plan on talking to?
Yeah, I was gonna get ahold of Christie.
Yeah.
Probably, I wasn't gonna really mess with it till next week though.
Right. And I think it merits discussion because it makes sense to just roll it back into that fund and get that fund healthy again. So,
well, budgets, and this is no disrespect to anybody, but budgets are usually curious items that a lot of people don't understand real well. And the less of this in and out garbage you can do, the more you simplify it, to me, makes it much easier, not only for us as commissioners, but for the general public to understand as well that what they see is actually what's going on.
right.
And so, just trying to simplify it.
Yeah.
Okay? Next thing I want to bring up to you, thanks, Derek. You have anything else?
No, sir.
Okay.
Good job, Derek.
The next thing I want to bring up to you is a support group that's being formed called New Path. And it's being formed by some participants and recovery coaches of the Hillsdale County District Drug Court. And they've established themselves as a 501c3, and what they're trying to do is create a kind of a support group doing fun things, cornhole events, a bowling event, outdoor day picnic, frisbee golf, kayaking, and this kind of thing. And they spoke at the prevention council that I was at about, would they give them any money and this kind of stuff to help them with this. And it's just kind of a fun way for people that have had substance abuse problems to get together in a relaxed atmosphere and so on. So if you hear anything about New Path, it's emanating from these folks out of the District Court Drug Court. It sounds like, I think it's a pretty good deal myself, so. The RFP for the actuarial studies for our pension plan has been posted. Now, Derek left, okay. The email that we got from the lawyers that you and I talked to at the Hunt Club when they came down.
Foster Swift, yeah.
There were three companies on there that they recommended. And I wanted to make sure, we put this RFP out on some website that the entire world sees, but I wanted to make sure those 3 got there. And Derek didn't have a copy of that email. Did I think I sent it to you. Do you have a copy?
Yeah.
Well, can you swish it to Derek?
I will try and swoosh it to there.
Okay. Now, so you know the dates on this thing. The date of issuance for the RFP is July 1. The deadline for questions is July 19. And then the response to all the questions will be July 26. So he'll take all the questions in from any companies that have any questions, and then he'll respond to those questions and send them out to everybody, so they all have them, okay? The bid deadline would then be August 2nd. And then the evaluation process and us to make up our minds and everything else will occur August, September, whatever, if we decide we want to go ahead with it. Okay? And I have a copy of what the RFP was. If any, I'll pass it around. If you want to read it, please feel free. And Derek has a copy of it if you want to get that. AAAs, Area Agency on Aging. They get a ton of money, and they hand it out to 3 counties. And I asked the question, how's it handed out? And you might want to remember this, in case you ever get put on this group. But the first thing they do is they figure out how many people in each county are over 60. They then figure out how many people in each county are at or below 150% of poverty level. And the third thing they figure out is the population. It says 50% of minority. I guess, like I'm 50% white, so I would be a white, but you need to be more than 50% of something to be counted as that something. And so then they add all those up. So the old, poor, black and Chicano people, I guess, in Hillsdale is 13,805. They do the same thing for Jackson, they do the same thing for Lenawee. Then they figure out how many of these people in Hillsdale there are out of the total. And it comes to 16.18%. Then they got another formula for geography, how much territory you cover. And Hillsdale has 29% of the geography out of the 3 counties.
I don't think so.
And then they take, of the people, they take 92.5%. Of the geography, they take 7.5%, and that gives you your final percentage, 17%. Now, nobody except a geek like me would care about this, except you need to know the formulas to make sure that you know the money's being handed out right. So I just pass that on to you so you know that there is a formula. I'm sure you won't remember it, but there is a formula, and so if you ever get on that board, you can ask about the formula. You'll be aware of it. That is nothing, and I thought I had a couple emails that I wanted to. Oh, the health department, we met yesterday, the financial committee, and the guy we had as the accountant, CPA, the guy that did our money, we hired him, he was there for not quite a year, and he got hired away from somebody else because he was good. But he discovered that we could apply as a health department to the state of Michigan for some kind of Medicaid reimbursement. And so he did that, because apparently a lot of the stuff we do, we hand out Medicaid, we don't get paid squat for, as you're well aware of the ambulance service. They do it to everybody. State promises the world and delivers nothing. But anyway, we got back 2 years worth of reimbursement, which amounted to, I think it was about $588,000. Now, that's a tremendous amount of money, and we don't yet quite know how to spend it, or what we can spend it on. However, we now know, this was MERS, our friends MERS, they got their assumptions, and we now know that the pension plan at the health department is $3.3 million in debt. 3.3 million. So my suggestion yesterday was to take this money that's coming in and dump it all into the pension plan. It's money we didn't expect, and we got this huge debt, and that would take care of about 600,000 of the 3.3 million. Going forward, they expect to get about a little bit less than 300,000 each year, and I said, well, then you can just keep dumping that money into the pension plan, and 6-7 years, we'll have the pension plan paid off. We've done the same. Over there, what we did was we took all the new employees that are coming in now, they're all going into a 401k. But the old people were left on the defined benefit plan, so we've got to pay for that. I mentioned to them the actuarial study that we're doing, and they had interest in that. Lifeways is getting some additional ideas from their people. I mentioned that before to you, so everybody's wrestling with the same problem. But hopefully that we can take all that money and put it in the pension plan, and that'll help take care of a good chunk of it. So with that, I'll be quiet. Thank you.
Questions? Who's responsible for washing the car?
Whoever wants to do it. Now, Mr. Chairman, I can state in absolute certainty that I've owned cars for, let's see, now I'm 70, 20, 50 years. I've owned cars for 50 years, and there has not been a day in my life that I've ever washed my car. Not once, because if you wash them, they just get dirty again. But I can take care of that. I can wash the cars the next year and a half.
Sheriff, you had a comment?
Bring it to us. We don't pick it up, but you bring it to us, somebody wants to bring it.
You want me to vacuum it out too?
Yes. Not very efficiently, but yes.
I can do that. Next time I borrow it somewhere, I can.
Are we using it on Thursday to go to Three Rivers?
I'm using it. I was
You
going to
better
talk
stop and
to
pick me up.
you. I was going to talk to you about whether or not you want to
Yeah,
drive in and we can go together.
yeah. Well, pick me up in Allen.
In Allen?
Yeah.
Okay, I can do that.
And
I used it when I went up there yesterday.
we could wash it on the way back. Next time the sheriff can wash it, or he can have someone out there.
Bring it before you go, have a clean one to go in.
So we want it out to the maintenance.
Where do we take it, Sheriff?
Just bring it right up to the main office there at Sallyport, come in and let them know that you're here for a car wash, and we'll get you in and get it washed. Not a problem.
Well, if you've got time in the morning, take it there first, and then we'll drive a clean car to Three Rivers.
Then it would just get dirty again.
It's all blacktop roads between here and Three Rivers, unless you take a wrong turn.
Okay.
Okay.
We got this thing
Thank
from
you.
Lifeways that we're going to owe them another $194,000 next year. And Tim, just so you know, we're getting done from the state about $60,000 a year because we supposedly didn't meet our local match, us in Jackson, with Lifeways for quite a few years. And so they caught us back in something like 8 or 9, and we had to start paying that. I think we've got 5 more years of that 60,000, and then that'll drop off and help our budget. Okay, but that was one of those deals that was verbally agreed to long time ago between the Department of Community Health, Jim Haveman, and the gal that was over Lifeways, and then all of a sudden there was nothing written down, and now you got to pay. So there we go.
Okay.
You want me to clean it out too, vacuum it?
Well, I think the sheriff's got somebody out there that can do that too. So
Okay.
if you run out there in the morning or after we get back, either one, it sounds like he can.
What time are you guys open for business?
24 hours a day, sir, 7 days a week.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week, okay.
Good answer, Sheriff Parker.
I assume one of the inmates does the cleaning, or?
Or I'll do it personally if you want.
And by the way, with the car, we've made 2 monthly payments. We've still got a little bit more time to go. 2 monthly payments, and figuring it very conservatively, we're about between $250 and $300 ahead of where we would have been if we were paying mileage. So
Oh, it's paying for itself.
it's more than paying for itself. Yep.
Yep. Well, okay. Any other questions for Bruce? All right, Ruth, you're on the clock.
Okay, all right. How many minutes do I have?
Take all the time you want.
Bruce saved you a couple.
Talking seconds.
All right.
If it gets too long, I'll just turn my hearing aids
Yeah,
off, and I'll keep smiling.
I know that. That's right. That's a good trick. So I went to the MSU Extension District Advisory Meeting in Ann Arbor, and I sent the minutes out to everybody. The biggest thing that came out of that is every commissioner should try to save, if you're available and if you can and everything, August 21st in the evening, you should save that if you can. I don't know where and when yet, but Dr. Jeff Dwyer, who's the MSU Extension Director, is coming to visit the district, and it's going to be a big deal. And Matt said all commissioners were invited, and he's going to be visiting in the district Wednesday and Thursday, and in our area on Wednesday, August 21st. So try to, when I find out when specifically and what time, I'll let you know. But that's all we know right now.
In that annual meeting.
It's the 18th, 19th, and 20th or something like that. Are you talking about the MAC?
Yes.
The MAC thing?
18th,
Yeah, it's the
18th, 19th, and 20th.
Okay.
And he'll be here the 21st.
First, so the day you'll be back.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay. And then I went to, speaking of Matt Shane, he gave the talk at Human Services Network this month. He came and he didn't give a PowerPoint or anything, but he talked for 30 minutes. I have it right here. He gave a 30-minute talk, and I took notes, and he did a good job. And he's out giving programs right now at organizations, and he did a very good job at that. Then yesterday in Hillsdale, there was a census meeting that I went to and took notes on, and I sent out something to all the commissioners on it. And this is just an initial meeting about the census. It's going to be in 2020. So that was yesterday. Then the other thing was Julie and I went to the MAC Regional Summit in Frankenmuth, and I'll let Julie talk about it. One thing that I got out of it was they talked about capital improvement projects and how to fund your capital improvement plan. And Bay County got an energy efficiency study, got a grant to do an energy efficiency study, and then they used the savings off that study of their energy, the money that they saved on energy, to fund their capital improvement plan. Have you ever heard of that before?
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard of that. I didn't think that there'd be enough savings to.
Well, I think, I wasn't there, I think what they're talking about is just like this building. We put in, the heating system we put in, we're saving all kinds of money on heat. They're saving, that money they're saving on heat, they're dumping all that into their capital improvements plan.
Okay.
We just took all that money and made savings in our budget and used it in all
different
different kinds of places.
Right.
Just according to what you want to do with the money.
I think these regional summits, this costs $35 for the day per commissioner. I think that that's a steal for the speakers and for the information they give and for the networking that you get and for the time that you spend there and drive up and back and everything. For $35, I think it's a really good deal. They did talk about, Marnie wanted us to find out what they were talking about, the Michigan trial court funding, and we did, and I will let Julie talk more about that because she talked to some of the clerks that were there. So I'll just let Julie talk about the Frankenmuth Summit right now.
Oh, right now?
Yeah, well,
sorry.
go ahead.
I didn't
Yeah.
interrupt your report.
Go ahead.
Okay, so, MAC did have a representative who was an attorney, not somebody that I was familiar with, on this panel to redo the whole Michigan trial court, funding system. There were 5 judges and 3 attorneys, and one of them was a MAC representative. But, I don't know, I understand why the clerks are concerned about this. They're making a lot of recommendations, and one of the biggest things is they want all the funding to go through the state. And so all the revenues we collect would go to the state, and then they're gonna send, this is the biggest thing I got out of it, then the state's gonna decide how much we get, and they're gonna reimburse us the money, which no one thinks is a good idea. So.
Except the state.
Except for the state, yes. And, the reason they're trying to do this, the theory behind it sounds good, okay? But, they're trying to stabilize the court funding system, provide all the technology you need so that everybody in the state is using the same, technology and programs to record things and to send in revenue. Unify assessments and collections, uniform employment system, okay, and then transition the plan for new court funding model. So they're trying, the theory, it all sounds great, but I think that what would happen to us in our courts is we would be left very short of funding, is what I believe would happen with this. So that part of it, it's not good, I don't think.
So you talked to some clerks that were there, and
Yeah,
some
they were
clerks
all-
stood
they were
up.
from big areas, in the district, and this is, once again, this is they're trying to make a one-size-fits-all thing, and this might very well work really well for like Oakland County, Wayne
Right.
County. Like, this might be a really good idea for them, but for the small rural people out here, I think we'll be on the losing end of it. That's frankly what.
2 things.
The guy that gave the talk about this, after all these clerks stood up and, gave all the comments that I told you that they gave, his response was, that this was just an interim report, and that they were welcoming feedback, and they wanted you, if they said to the clerks and to everybody else that was there, if you don't like this or you have problems with it or whatever, this is the time to provide feedback, and they was welcome to provide comments because it was just an interim report.
And the
That's what he
report
said.
is on the MAC website, and they said you can view it there and then give feedback.
Mhm.
So I would strongly recommend that
Plus-
everyone review it and give feedback.
Plus Marty
Because-
sent it out to us. You sent it
Yeah.
to us, you sent it to us.
Did anybody mention at this conference you were at on this issue that the state put in place 10 years ago, the state Supreme Court, a computer system that was going
Yes.
to be the be-all and end-all,
Yep, the
Yes.
clerks
and that
talked
it
about
failed
that.
miserably?
Yes,
And
yes.
some of them said, that they were supposed to, one of them actually said that they were supposed to buy it, like it was mandatory, that they were supposed to do it, and they didn't do it. And
Well,
they're glad, they're glad now.
Dave Holcomb didn't do it in our county. He stayed right away from it.
Yeah.
And God bless him for staying away from
Because
it.
it was yes, it was a complete failure.
Yes.
And so they don't have any faith, the clerks.
And Marnie, for your
that spoke
purposes,
up.
I know you're involved with the clerks with this. I was up in Lansing and I saw them put in a brand new computer system for the Department of Human Services, which has been a complete disaster. Now they're talking about putting in yet another one. And I've seen one other computer system, I can't remember now what it was, but it failed miserably. So the state does not have a good record of putting in place efficient, well-run computer systems.
Right, but they want to take over all the technology.
Well, the
And-
second question I have is this. I've heard, I think Ruth, you told me, that at this conference they said that there are judges around the state who will jack up the fees that people who come before them have to pay. They jack up the fees because it raises more local money. Was that said at this conference?
Yes, and there's actually at least 2 court cases going on right now where people who were convicted, the state, there's state levels of what a judge can issue
Right.
if you commit a crime. There's a guideline. But beyond that, the local courts also assess fines and fees.
Correct.
And this is what these convicted people are, you know, bringing these court cases and complaining about, because they're saying that they're excessive and that they feel like it's a tax, you know, on the citizens. So that's another
Well, then, why doesn't the
problem.
solution to this problem, rather than the state taking over everything, why doesn't the solution to this problem simply be that each county, the commissioners have to set a fee schedule that the courts follow?
Well, that's probably what it should be. That's probably what should happen. But so now, these two cases are, you know, at the state Supreme Court. And they're gonna be decided. So.
One of the things I discovered.
It could be interesting.
One of the things I discovered, Mr. Chairman, and I worked hard, and I'm sure I wasn't perfect, but when you get elected to go to Lansing or Washington, all of a sudden, your answers are all the right answers, and we simply have to take over more and more stuff because us bumbling fools at the local level, we don't know enough to come in out of the rain.
Right. This is just one of those cases
I didn't
where
agree with that.
they think that, you know, the state can do a better job of running the courts than the local government. So I totally disagree with it. I don't know, I just think we need to go on there. And also the clerks that were there pointed out that this commission was made up of judges and attorneys and that no clerk representation was on this commission.
Right.
And they felt that they were purposely left off.
I'm sure.
It seemed like they were purposefully left off because why wouldn't anybody have said,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I mean,
They have no representation.
like there was a max seat on that board and they didn't say, oh, well, why aren't there any clerks represented? You know, it's almost like, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Well, I think we've had an example in our county of what will happen. If you remember, a year ago or so, Judge Smith was told that he wasn't running friend of the court correctly.
Right.
Although he'd done it for 20 years, he wasn't running it correctly. And to run it correctly, he had to spend a whole lot more money. That's generally the attitude you get from Lansing and Washington. They're going to come in and tell you how to do it right, and you have to spend a whole lot more. And everything out that friend of court has run fine for years without all the additional costs. You might remember, I asked him, I said, well, why don't you go to the other counties and tell them to do it the way we're doing it so they can be more cost efficient? That didn't get any response from any of them. So. Interesting.
Yep.
I'll let Ruth
It was
finish her
good,
report, and then I can talk about
it's
some
well
others.
worth it. For $35,
It was one of the best that I've been to since
It's
I've
well
been a
worth it.
commissioner. The topics were all good, the speakers were good, there was a lot of really good information.
they gave breakfast and lunch both. And so, you know, we drove the county car, we ate breakfast and lunch there and came back in one day. So it's worth it. To me, there, you know, the networking with the other commissioners who were there, I talked to some other commissioners that were there. Julie talked to clerks that were there. There's probably 50 people there that day. It's well worth it. I think it's a good thing that MAC puts on. There are a lot of conferences you can go to for $35. So anyways, that's my report unless there's questions.
Yeah, do you want a response to that, as a county, or?
I think they have to have a decision done by September of this year, is that correct?
But I think we probably should maybe put something together saying how we feel about it. And as a maybe unified response from our county and respond to it. Because you know how this works.
Don't look at me.
You know how this works. The state, I mean, they're gonna push forward with this if they don't get a lot of pushback on it. And they might try anyway, but
They
I
will.
think that we need to, yeah, because the state is, most of the people there, I think, felt that were local government people that were there, felt that it was just a state power grab to take power from the local government.
Right.
And I think it's true. I don't think it's a good idea, and I think that funding wise, if they decide to let this, commission go forward and institute this, where the state will then, all the revenue, the collections department will basically not exist locally, because all the revenue is gonna go to the state, and then we have to wait to get it back to run our courts. I'd hate to see what would happen. I know we would be on the short end of the stick.
Ask the schools how that's worked out with Proposal A.
Exactly.
I think a letter from, I think Tim makes a good point, a letter from the board and possibly even signed by all of us, not just by the board chairman, but, but I do kind of agree with Bruce's pointing.
Well,
Bruce and
that-
I can
I
look
think
at
it's-
Marnie and.
Yeah,
I
I
was
think
gonna
Marnie
say,
would be
I think
invaluable to
Marnie-
help to
Yeah.
put it together, but it needs
But
your
we
input.
both have really good notes. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have
We both
several
need
it
their
should-
input.
It should come from, because Marnie is the most well-versed in this, from the clerk's aspect.
Well, they want to take any employee on my staff and make them state employees.
Yes, yep, they will all become state employees.
And so,
Yeah, it's
what
just,
about the files,
Exactly.
and the supervision, and where's the balance, in the courtroom?
There wasn't
That's why this
a
was set
lot
up
of,
the way, so that the clerks could monitor the files
right.
Keep it a local
It's a
level.
checks and balances system.
And I don't know if the board is aware, but now anybody that is on public assistance can come in and all their fees are waived, provided, the judge approves it, they just have to give their number. So that's money, less money that's sent to the state, put in the judge's retirement and everything else. Doesn't make any
there didn't
sense.
seem like there was much faith in it as far as, because when they brought up the computer system that had been scrapped,
Yeah,
there didn't seem to be much faith that this was really gonna happen.
And
That's the
e-filing.
vibe that I got from it when we were there.
Go ahead, Bruce.
And the other way that this can be solved very simply is if you have a judge out there who is purposely jacking up the local rates to raise money, the Supreme Court can just remove them. The Supreme Court Administrative Office could put in place clear guidelines, and if you exceed those, then you're removed from the bench.
Yeah,
They could do that right now,
right.
if they wanted to.
Yeah, well, that's
we'll
not
see how
gonna,
they rule
no,
on
no
these
judge
cases,
gets
'cause
removed
that's
from the
exactly what
bench
these two cases
for
are
hardly
about.
any reason.
Is that, people who have been
Doesn't-
convicted are saying that the courts are charging them excessive fees.
We've been collecting e-filing for probably a little over 2 years now, an extra $25 on every case that's filed. And that has not been implemented. So that's another example of lack of.
Excuse me. I think as long as we get a letter prepared by the 9th where the whole board can look at it, and I think the whole board can sign it so that it's got 5 signatures on it instead of 1. And I think we fire it off that same day. So Ruth, you and Julie work with Marnie and anyone else that you can pull into for input, and put together a letter that hopefully will be read.
Okay,
But I think it's prudent. I think Tim's suggestion has good merit. But I think we can get it done by the 9th and get it sent off on the 9th, and it's still, because we don't meet again until the 9th. But that gives you some time to work on it as well. So, okay. Anything else?
no,
Ruth?
sir.
All right. Brings us up to Tim.
I, again, don't have any report or anything, but I will yield the floor and ask the sheriff to address us if he has any for us.
I'm sure he's got an update. We're overcrowded again, probably.
Not today. Real briefly, and this is mainly a preemptive reminder to the board. Number one is the mention was brought up about the IDF budget for 2021 has been tentatively approved, and in that budget, I've been advised that there was an allocation for an additional hiring of a sheriff deputy at the jail. So preemptively, in anticipation of that, I'll be looking for the board to officially authorize me to hire that deputy prior to that October date. Then I'll make it effective, they'll start October 1 roughly, but I just need advance notice that there will be the potential to hire a deputy to fill that spot. And that way I'm not waiting up until the end of September and then we say, hey, are you gonna do anything? I just wanna let the board know I will need that authorization once the budget's been approved, and I know you talked about it may not be officially approved until September, but just from my standpoint, I would look for that from the board to authorize that hiring of that officer for that.
Well, we can't do that until we know we're gonna get the money from the state.
And again, I understand that, and I heard what you said, but I know how things work at the last minute. Okay, now you can hire somebody. I'm just looking for what, as soon as you know, let me know so that I can make the appropriate, because I just can't pull one out of the air, so to speak. And so I just want to let the board know that. Secondly, that September deadline is coming up for the board also to act on the ORV ordinance. I just wanted to remind the board once again and let you know that, again, officially from the standpoint of the sheriff of the county, I am in supportive of renewing that. I know we had a bad crash recently that it severely injured some individuals, but quite frankly, it's one of those cases where we have crashes that it's just unforeseen, and when people do stupid things, you can't do much about it when they turn in front of others. I don't think that's indicative of problems we've had countywide, that there would be any reason that I would come to the board and say, do not pass the ORV ordinance going forward, but that is up for renewal. So just again, it's a preemptive reminder to the board that I am supportive of that and ask that you go ahead and renew that. That's all I have today.
I have a question. Was that accident, what happened in that accident? Did
The person operating the ORV turned abruptly in front of the westbound vehicle, and there was no time for braking. They just turned right in front of it.
is there, anybody know why or don't know why, or was this an older person?
So, not better.
Okay.
But like I say, something just happens.
Okay,
That's all I have.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Well, Tim, sounds like you have a task as far as looking at that ordinance. And, get with the sheriff, get with the prosecutor, whomever. And, we either need it or we don't. So, but
Did you look at that already?
pull that out and shake the dust
Not
off
really.
of it. And Marnie can bring you up a copy of it, I'm sure, but so that's your task.
I can do that.
And it sounds like we need to deal with that sometime between now and September. September would be the latest, but. So, anything else?
Nah.
Okay. Any questions for Tim? All right, Julie, you're up.
Okay. So I'm going to continue on with just briefly the other topics that we talked about at the MAC conference that we went to in Frankenmuth. We talked about risk issues with mental illness in the jails, and a gentleman from MMRMA, Tom Sermonte, I'm not sure if that's how you say his name, spoke. And MMRMA represents 65 of the, I believe, 83 counties in Michigan and 400 municipalities. They just threw out a bunch of very interesting statistics about mental illness and substance abuse issues. 72% basically on average of the people in the jail have one or the other or both. 50% of people who were under the influence of alcohol and or drugs are the convicted people in the jails. So a lot of really good information and statistics. Of course, you know, they're looking for solutions. There's going to be let's see, well, there was a doctor in Ann Arbor that created a training thing that I was going to talk to Tim about managing mental health crises in the jail, and they put on a very good training for officers concerning people so that they can differentiate between, is somebody under the influence, or does somebody actually have Alzheimer's or autism, or are they schizophrenic? You know, how you recognize the different issues that people might have and what's going on with them. And there are very specific things that can help a person, an officer, differentiate between, is somebody, you know, on drugs, or are they autistic, you know, so that they can recognize this. So that's something that I can talk to Tim about. Also, I thought it was interesting, they said that, and I think maybe this is what we're doing partially, but they said that they're using the PA2 funds for prevention and treatment to fund mental health person in the jail, and also to fund sheriff staff training. They're using those funds for that. So I thought that was interesting. Another thing that we talked about was tackling blight. And there was a lot of really good information from the State Land Bank Authority and Brownfield Redevelopment Authorities, and how you can help develop affordable housing between those two things, between creating a Land Bank Authority and Brownfield Development Authority. We currently, you know, we don't have one for Brownfield, and I don't think we do the Land Bank either. That I'm aware of. So I have some good information on that we might consider doing that. And then Ruth spoke about the capital improvement planning program that was also really good. Then the next thing I went to yesterday, there was a USDA rural development lunch that was given for free for interested parties, and there was all kinds of people there from the community at Olivia's from 11 to 1 yesterday. And they talked about all the different programs that are available through the USDA and the MEDC to communities. There are, you know, housing programs, which I'm aware of as a realtor, some of which that might be able to help us get some new housing in the community. There's also CBDG funds available for placemaking in public spaces, and have information to contact the person there. Also, a gentleman from the former DEQ, which is called Eagle now, which is, I wrote this down somewhere, what does it stand for? Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. So the new governor has changed the name of the DEQ to Eagle, and that's what it stands for, just so people know. But anyways, they gave a lot of good information about, you know, grants for aquatic, natural resources, land and water conservation, recreation, passport grant money, what that's used for. And that brings me up to the parks meeting next month. We're going to have Harmony from MSU Extension is going to come and start working with us to get some of these, apply for some of these grants. And they gave the deadlines, like the deadline to apply for the next DNR grant is April 1st next year. So, and then you have to have other stuff in by October, and then the grants are awarded in December. So we're trying to prepare for that, and so that was nice that led into this next meeting that we'll have at the Parks Commission. Also, I was able to, we completed the program of the interns working at the parks. That was through the ISD. And then I was contacted by Key Opportunities. And last week and all this week for 3 hours a day, every day of the week that it's not raining, Key Opportunities has also given us some interns to work and help out at the parks. So that's been a really, really great help. And the only thing we do in return is if any of those people that participate and complete their tasks need letters of reference, I offer to, make those available for those people, students and helpers out there. Also, the parks, just so you know, there's a brick walkway as you enter Lewis Emery Park to the left by the waterfall and the bridge area there. And they sell bricks. A 4x8 brick is 3 lines and it's $50. Or you can get an 8x8 one for $75. And you could do it, in memory or honor of people. And it's also a fundraiser for the park. So those are available and we can get them made much more quickly now. In the past, it was a long consuming process and they'd have to wait to have so many to get it done. Well, now we have a local person doing this. So now we can get it done quickly. And actually, I think they did lower the price also. Done quickly and they'll be installed more quickly.
You mean local is quicker and cheaper?
Yes.
Shocking, just
Yes.
shocking.
We didn't have a person, but we found a person, and I already ordered a brick in memory of 2 of my friends, and so hopefully that'll be out there in short order.
Send me the information on it,
Okay,
please.
I can do that. Already talked about the lunch and learn yesterday.
So how many people were at the lunch and learn?
It was packed. It was full.
So like 80 people, 70, 80 people?
50, 60, I would say. That whole back room in Olivia's was full. And there were all different kinds of people there, from local government, insurance agencies, banks. I mean, there was quite a diverse group.
So
of
who
people there.
who paid for the free lunch? Who paid for lunch for
No,
everybody?
I actually think that they got a sponsor for that, which was County National Bank. paid
Oh, it was
for that.
County National Bank.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right. I remember
That's
now.
my understanding.
Okay.
But it was really, there was a lot of information, I just briefed over it here, but I have a lot of information on all those topics. It was very well done, and they had several speakers, and, they did the PowerPoint and all that. It was
That stuff that you
worthwhile.
mentioned, Julie, some of it's good stuff, but some of it is a pig in a poke. And I
Wow.
will mention, there was a business over in Coldwater, back when things got really tough, that was going under. The guy reformulated his company, moved what few assets he had over to it, and left all the debt with this one, so they could go bankrupt. He had lots of orders for new material, and he needed cash so he could buy the raw material to get started again. And the first thing I did was I went to the MEDC, and they came down, and it was the Texas two-step for 6 months, and it finally became obvious they weren't going to do squat. So then I went to the city of Coldwater. Well, Coldwater had a bunch of CDBG money that had been collected over years. But the federal government rules wouldn't allow them to use it to advance this guy cash so he could buy his raw material. So what I ended up doing is I ended up going over to Litchfield and talked to the mayor over there, Ed Smith. They have money in Litchfield. Over the years, they've been really, really smart about putting money away. And he said, yeah, he said, I think we can get them a couple $100,000 to buy the raw materials, and we can get them into a building for not too much. There's a lot of vacant buildings in. That company moved over to Litchfield. 5 employees when they moved. Today, that company's in Litchfield got 165 employees because he had the flexibility with his money, because it was their money through their TIFA grant and everything, that he could do this sort of thing. So that stuff is good in terms of the initial, but it's got so much red tape associated with it, can really tie you up down the road.
There are a lot of strings attached.
Yeah, whenever you deal with the feds and the
There
state.
is, with public money, so
So,
that's true. So if you do any of those programs, they're you have to jump through all the hoops
Yep.
to get the money. At the road commission, last week, we talked about a lot of different things. You know, a constituent contacted me. I had posted on a Facebook page that I was at my road commission meeting, and I posted the agenda, and they had contacted me about the recent accident and deaths down south in the county where the gentleman hit the Amish family, and there were a lot of people killed. And they said, you know, do you think that you could get the road commission to put up some signs, you know, blah, blah, blah. So I brought this up at the meeting because it seems like, in theory, once again, that this would be a good idea. Maybe not specifically, you know, watch for Amish, you know, because then who else do you have to watch for and put up signs? But slow-moving vehicles, whatever. And they said that this has been tried many times in the past, and that really, unfortunately, it doesn't solve the problem at all.
Well, the
So-
Camden area does have, and I don't know specifically what roads, but they do have some signs that have like horse-drawn vehicles on them. And I think there's even some other ones that have been tried down there, and I know there is some down there. I've seen them myself. The problem is getting motorists to just recognize that they're in an Amish area.
Right.
Unfortunately, I would say probably 50% of the time or more, the English driver's at fault. Because for one thing, and this is something that I know I've talked to our representatives, you know, Eric as well as Mike, about, you know, something that's not even taught in driver's ed anymore is rate of closure. Your rate of closure at 60 miles an hour or 55 miles an hour, when you're coming up on a buggy that's doing 10 miles an hour,
It's
you're there
snap.
right now.
Right.
And, you know, it's got to be addressed through the Secretary of State's office as far as what they require for driver's training, number one. But the other issue is if it's a nighttime accident, which I don't recall if that one was or not.
I don't think it was.
I don't think it was. I think it was evening or, I think it was still daylight. But, you know, lighting of the buggies, marking of the buggies, there is no uniform standard. Senator Shirkey and I have talked about this. We've talked with several Amish communities about it.
Didn't you have a meeting with the bishops with
Oh,
Senator
we have.
Shirkey?
And
We have.
and
I
the road
thought.
commission, you know, the road commission indicated that they've made efforts because also part of the problem is because of their, you know, religion, that, you know, they have not been super cooperative in agreeing to marking, lighting, flags. You know, to me, it just seems like, you know, we're in the hills and dales, right? That's how we got our name, and there's a lot of rolling on the roads, and I think what happens is, if you don't see it ahead of time and they're on the downside of the hill and you come flying over the hill at 55 miles an hour, you're on top of them before you ever see them. It
Well,
just seems like if they would do the bright orange flags like bikes do with the flag, but we've tried to approach them. I know Senator Shirkey had a big meeting with them
yeah.
at one point with the Amish community, and they, you know, it's not something that they really want to do, which is unfortunate because I think those orange flags that are tall would go a long way in letting people know, hey, there's something up there in the road ahead of me.
The thing of it is, you take this particular incident, of course, that's gonna draw attention to everybody, but this particular incident, the orange flag signs wouldn't have
It
mattered.
wouldn't matter. No, this
You know,
person was drunk.
Individual, I don't know it, but what I've read, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
So it's just, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, we aren't gonna change the world for this one particular incident, and this, as sad as it is, I think it's family wiped out, but
Yeah.
it's just stupidity is more than.
Anything. But
You crest a hill, and there's a buggy at the bottom, or even, you know, whatever, slow moving vehicle,
it's hard to
tough.
stop.
Well,
And
but
that's-
there again, you know, I mean, seriously, the Camden area specifically, there is a large percentage of Amish. So shouldn't you be driving a little more cautiously? I mean,
You would think, but you
yeah,
know.
so, I mean, some of this goes back to just people using good judgment. You know, I mean, it's not all the Amish's fault. It's, you know, like I say, a lot of these accidents are the English drivers just not paying attention,
I agree.
so,
Um,
but,
the other things we talked about,
Too many of those in their hands.
yeah,
yeah.
the auditors were at the road commission 2 weeks ago, presented the report. They got a clean opinion on their audit, and I'm working on getting a copy of that so that I can bring it now, put it in the commissioner's office if anybody
How many years have
wants
they
to
had
look.
those auditors?
I think that they had them for at least 3 years prior, and that last fall they put out a rebid, and they were again the low bidder. So they have a new contract, I think, for 3 years. So
Just
for
a
a
thought,
while.
just a thought, if you're still around when this 3 years runs up, tell them to get a new auditor.
Well,
Why
I
is
mean,
that?
I think they looked at it.
Keeping an auditor too long is not good. We ran into it here in the county.
It's
And I've
good-
seen it in other
it's good to
institutions.
change it up once
How
in a
long is
while.
too
The-
long?
6 years is plenty. After that,
After 6
get
years, you
somebody
should
different.
get somebody different.
we got new auditors in last year, and all of a sudden they found out that there were assets that we had that were being carried on the books inappropriately, and they greatly depreciated them, which made eventually the money will come back, but it made our assets quite a bit less. And there needs to be accuracy in that regard. It needs to be
New
done
eyes on
properly.
something never hurt.
And you get an
I don't disagree
auditor,
with that.
they stay too long and they just start going through the motions. They don't really look the way they should. Change is good.
Well,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
we were told that at the fire department, 5 years is too much. So the individuals that were telling this, both of them had their auditors and their governmental for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And I just kind of chuckled. But anyhow, go ahead.
Well, you might like what somebody, if you're always getting a quick opinion, and that's that, then it looks good, but I think fresh eyes on it once in a while.
No, I don't
does not
disagree at all.
I know, I've noticed that when you're on a board, and if you bring this up and make a suggestion at the board meeting to, let's switch auditors, I've noticed on quite a few different boards that there's quite a bit of pushback on that.
Well, sure there is, because
And
everybody's comfortable.
you can try to argue and say everything that you just said and make a motion and everything else, but it's hard to get boards to switch.
Lifeway's changed theirs after this discussion.
I think it's good. I think it's good. So, if I'm still around, I won't feel to mention it. Bruce and I also attended the Community Action Agency Strategic Planning session last week. That went really well. I like that they include the board. They had met previously, their heads of things, and came up with ideas, and then they asked us all to add to that. So I thought that was a very successful, productive meeting. And then, last but not least, the 911 meeting that I was at, emergency telephone services. The election is August 6th. I just want to remind people that that is a surcharge for the phone system. It totally operates our 911 system, and they're just asking for a renewal on this vote. So it's very important that we get a positive result, and I hope people vote for that. That is my report.
So to tag along with that, everybody's used to having 911, so it's critical that that renews. But the other thing is Doug shared with me, and I know I talked to Julie last night about it briefly, I think. We talked about several things, but 911 in Branch County has had some issues, and part of it is wages, which we got a new wage agreement with them last year and solved some of our problems as far as staffing. Branch County, turns out, from what I was reading in the article, is extremely below where our pay level is, and extremely below Calhoun County, which they've lost some of their dispatchers to Calhoun County because of wage differences. They are now down to a total of 6 people, total, including supervisors and everything,
To run their 911.
to run it 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
So,
So we could have been in the same situation,
Oh,
was the essence
good.
of what Doug was saying,
yeah,
you know, in reference to that article, had we all not intervened and helped them reach a new schedule. And actually, at the meeting, there were 3 ladies there that would have come on as new full and part-time dispatchers. And so we're looking pretty good now at this point, so.
see, and actually in the article in the Coldwater paper about the problem, which this article was in, I think, last Thursday's paper, but they've hired a few new ones. The problem is it takes 3 months to train the new ones,
Right.
and the staff members that are already overworked are having to do the training.
Yeah.
So they've got some issues, so, you know,
We're glad not to be in
we're
that
glad,
position.
exactly, Julie, you're exactly right. We're
Yeah.
glad we're not in that situation.
We were close.
You know, it's one of those public services that, quite frankly, everybody appreciates that we've got a 911 service, but in the same token, we've got to fund it, so hence the millage. So, or not really millage, it's renewal of the surcharge, I should say, yeah. So, but anyways,
Also, they did do a new brochure that they passed out at the meeting. And of course, when you have the need to call 911, they prefer that you call so they can be in direct contact with you. But also, I mentioned this before, that they were working on the text to talk, and you can do text to 911 if it's a situation that is not safe to speak out loud.
Right.
You can text 911 and they can respond to you. So that's all in the new brochure.
yeah, they've got, well, I think it's referred to as the Smart 911.
Yes,
So they can text and, yeah.
but I just want the citizens to be understanding that this surcharge that we vote on every, I think, 6 years,
Yes.
that completely funds our 911 in Hillsdale County. That's what they use to fund 911. And even though the ballot language will say that the commissioners can make the surcharge up to $3, we approve $2.50, which is what it has been, and that's all we're planning on doing at this time. So don't forget to vote on August, at the August ballot, August 6th.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Julie. Well, going along with that, I've got 2 different emails from Doug that, so I've got to clarify with him. I participated in these disaster drills that emergency management puts together. And it's training that a lot of the fire chiefs, the sheriff, the chairman of the board, you know, a collective group of people sit down and go through scenarios. One of the ones we went through a couple of years ago, and it's coordinating efforts. And one of the scenarios was a tornado came through the northern edge of Hillsdale here and took out that trailer park and you know, that part of the town. And of course, M99 was all shut down and power was shut down. And you know, so you work through, okay, how are we working as emergency management? And one of the reasons for these training drills is so that when you're sitting around the table with other county leaders, at least you know who the players are. So, but one email says July 10th and the other one says July 12th. So I got to find out which date he wants me there at 9 a.m. But anyways, and I think normally we've done them either at RAU or out to, well, the last one was out to the new 911 facility, but it looks like, yeah, this one will be out at the 911 center. But this one's actually being, done in cooperation with the Branch Hillsdale St. Joseph Health Agency. And this scenario, basically is gonna be around the concept of a major H1N1 influenza outbreak. So that's why the health department's involved in this one. So it'd be an interesting scenario. You usually get, a packet telling you, some of the details and then you kind of work through it. But anyways, so that's upcoming. Update on the Regional Council of Counties. I sent an email to all the 5 or 6 that were in attendance at the last one because we were minus a few counties. Concerning the changes that were talked about this thing not automatically renewing, and it taking a majority vote or a simple majority vote. Nobody had an issue with the simple majority thought, but I got various comments in regards to why do we have a problem with it automatically renewing, should there not be a vote taken right on that day. Nobody had a problem with taking a vote, say we didn't meet on the day that the council agreement expired, we might vote on it the next month. So in essence, that thing actually needs to renew automatically because if we didn't have a scheduled meeting, you don't want this thing to lapse. And you do want the council to be in place because the sole purpose of this is to continue monitoring the aquifer for years to come.
Yeah.
So, no one had a problem with the simple majority, as far as a renewal, but there was an issue about the automatic renewal based on the fact that currently, if we meet like we have been, the meetings have been kind of random. Now, whether or not we change that once we're a legal entity, I can't answer that because that's another one of those discussions that we really haven't had. So if you guys are okay with that, yes.
Well, there's 2 philosophies.
Yep.
One is just let it renew. The
Yep.
second philosophy is government does not do a good job at looking back at things and actually reading documents. It's much easier just to let it renew and on we go. But forcing it to be voted on to renew forces people, hopefully, to actually read the document and look at it and ask some questions. Now, asking questions is a good thing, irrespective of what a lot of people think. Sometimes the people who ask questions are considered to be a pain in the hind end. But it's a good thing. It forces you to look back and rethink things. And we're going to have new people sitting here in a few years when this comes up. It would not be bad to force them to read it and to analyze it and to say, well, maybe they're going to see something we haven't seen.
Yeah.
And we started doing up in Lansing a lot of sunsets. Well, then they decided sunsets were too hard because if things sunset, we have to bring it back up again and we have to look at it. So we'll just automatically renew. And then they started putting in automatic inflation kickers on fees. So if it's $10 this year, 2 years from now it goes up 2%. We don't have to vote on it again. It automatically goes up and keeps going up. See, I just don't agree with that. And government is notorious for just letting things continue. Closest thing to eternal life on earth is a government program. And that's the reason I feel the way I do about it. I think it's good to go back and look at things and question things.
Oh, I don't disagree. It's a good idea to review this document.
But it won't get reviewed if it's not.
I think one of the problems is, at least from some of the responses I got, is we've kicked this thing around now for about 3-4 months. We need to sign it and get going. And because the whole purpose here is to establish a monitoring system
Correct.
for the aquifer.
Correct.
And the longer we wait,
then they can adopt this change and we'll be fine and we can move on. And anybody who says, Mr. Chairman, who says, we've kicked this thing around long enough and so on and so forth, that tells me those people I don't want in charge. I don't want them in charge of anything.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not gonna raise a stink about it and everything else, but I'm just telling you, that's another philosophy that's counter to this, well, just let's get along and go along and continue it forever.
Well, the intent is to sign this agreement on July 30th.
I get it.
There is not a meeting scheduled before that.
I get it.
So,
And I get the fact that there's been quite a few changes that have been made in this thing. It's better than it was. Is Bruce Castle gonna have everything he wants? No, I get that, and so on and so forth. But I'm just telling you, the people who advocate for just letting things continue to roll, I don't think people like that should be in government.
I understand what you're saying. I guess I'm just eager to get this monitoring started because the longer we wait, the less data we have. But I guess my question to you is if I can pursue those changes that we've discussed, or this latest change, because the other ones I got worked in, I think to our satisfaction, can I sign it on July 30th? With the understanding that we've got to have the renewal language in there that has got to be voted on.
I guess you're gonna have to.
But I think, to my point about the fact that we're not, if this agreement renews, say for instance, on July 30th, and we don't meet in the month of July, I guess we've got to have a vote on it, within 30 days? Is that sound?
We do.
No, I'm saying the council would have to vote at least within 30 days as far as renewing it. If we want language in there that it's voted on before it renews, for it to renew, we'd probably need some sort of time frame in there, because if the council doesn't meet,
Give them some leeway.
yeah, I mean, there's got to be some leeway time.
Well, that's better than just letting it roll forever.
Right.
Okay, well, I'll pursue that language then. And if we don't get that language, I won't sign the bloody thing. But I think in the same token, I need to have a resolution authorizing me to sign it.
Okay.
But I mean, if you trust me to get that language in there, which I would hope.
Well, Mr. Chairman, just so the rest of you understand why I'm being such a horse's hind end on this, we had a bill come through up in Lansing. It was technical changes to the concealed weapons permit. That's how it was presented. And in committee, everybody voted for it. It was 8-0. Move it ahead. I had a constituent call me from down here in Hillsdale County and said, have you seen this bill? And I said, no. It was 7 o'clock in the morning, I was in my office. He said, this thing is horrible. I said, what does it do? He said, right now, if you have a concealed weapons permit and you commit a felony, you lose your permit. But he said, this bill is changing it so that if you get any kind of a ticket, a speeding ticket, a parking ticket, a misdemeanor, anything, you lose your concealed weapons permit. And I said, you gotta be kidding, because that's not how it was presented.
Right.
So I called the House Policy as soon as they opened up at 8 o'clock and asked them, is this what it does? And they said, yes. So I went back, and when we went over to vote, and when we went in caucus, I said, why did you guys that are on that committee vote for this thing? Well, it's just technical corrections. And when I explained to them what it actually did, the blood drained out of their face and so on. They never read it. Okay? And that's what makes me so hesitant about just allowing things to continue. You gotta read stuff. You gotta question things. There's nothing wrong with that.
No. I understand that. Go
As
ahead.
far as your renewal, I mean, are we talking every year? Are we talking 3 years, 5
Well,
years?
I think what was, the language that was in the document that I had everyone look at was 5 years.
No, it was 5, but
Yep. So,
In 5 years, there could be 5 new people sitting here.
well, and that things change and that length of time. I mean,
Well,
3
and-
to 5 wouldn't be a bad thing, but yeah, I agree with what Bruce is saying, in my opinion, that, you know, we should force whoever this other group might be, if it's affecting us, they should look at it every 5 years. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah,
I don't know
okay.
if that's a deal breaker, but I would strongly suggest that you push for that, in my opinion.
Well, I think,
There's no reason not to.
well, I think, you know, the two things that we talked about was, you know, striking the automatic renewal, that it took a vote to renew it.
Right.
But we also were talking about, I think the original language, I'd have to look at it, but I think the original language said majority, and we discussed a simple majority, which I think makes sense. But I think the only other thing that I would recommend anyways is that we put a time frame in there, because based on
Within
meeting
30
schedule.
days.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotta be re-voted on within 30 days or it lapses. And then yes, you're forced into basically redoing the whole thing.
Yep.
But, and I don't have a problem with that, I know we're at a point here where, and one email that I just got from one of the commissioners a couple days ago said, let's make this change, then let's get the agreement signed. You know, so they were okay with making the change, but let's do it at the same meeting and then sign, you know. And then send out a clean copy to everybody of, you know, what was changed and what was signed and so on. And I like that person's idea, because
Yep.
then we get it changed before it's signed, because I don't want to sign it and then change it. I mean, somehow that doesn't make sense.
I mean, you can put in there that you're gonna review it in 4 years and renew it on the end of the 5th year, or that gives you a year to do it.
Yeah.
And you're only gonna have 2 or 3 meetings a year, you know, that gives you plenty of time to, well, this is fine, or no, we should go to this, adjust that. And we found this didn't work over a 4-year period. You got plenty of time to work, make it work.
Yeah, I have to discuss it with them on the 30th and see what time frame they think's appropriate in there for review, you know, but, you know, I think if we put a time frame in there, it does give us the flexibility of when to sign it and vote on it, you know, and move it on, but, you know, and we may set up more of a regular meeting schedule. Like I say, you know, we've been so involved on trying to find out the right language that we want. We really haven't discussed meeting dates. You know, we've probably met, since last July or August, we've met probably 6 or 7 times anyways,
Yeah.
if not more. I'd have to go back through my calendar, but, you know, it's one of them things, as we walk through it, we'll know how many meetings a year we need, you know. But, okay, well, I'll keep working in that direction then. And that's all I have, unless somebody's got a question of me. Go ahead, Tim.
Didn't we already give you authorization to sign that though?
No, that resolution was never signed.
It was on the agenda at one time, and it was
Well, what's that?
pulled, I
So
think.
then won't we put it on for the next meeting, definitely in time?
Put it on the next meeting.
Let's put it on.
The resolution to do
Authorize
that?
him to-
Yeah,
We need to have it on for the next
okay,
meeting.
appreciate that. We'll put that on the next meeting, and basically that'll allow me to sign.
Yes.
And I think I need a copy in hand so that they know that it's approved. And I know we have discussed about everybody bringing such a resolution from their boards. Because not everybody that's been attending the meetings is a board chairman necessarily, but it's the representative from that county.
Right.
So, you know, we need the authorization. So, good point, thank you. Okay. That's all I have. Public comment? Stephanie?
Is it too late to ask for a closed session for attorney-client privilege?
No, we can do that right now if you'd like.
Okay. And how does it get taken off of the YouTube or whatever it's on?
Good question.
Now
Are you
what?
listening?
I'll text him.
Yeah.
You wanna finish public comment first?
Yeah, I'll wait till that's taken care of.
While she's texting, will Penny, you or Corey got anything to address?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you're aware of what's going on in the Michigan South Central Power Agency and the shenanigans that are going on over there. I went over and covered that meeting yesterday. It was very enlightening and sad. I respect David Mackey, our city manager, and the Union city manager for trying to put a stop to it. I brought up on their agenda, public comment is at the end. They talked about transparency and being open and honest. I'm like, well, if your public comment is at the end, clearly you don't want us hear or address any concerns with the business at hand. Supposedly that's going to get changed. None of their agendas or anything are posted on the websites. It says on their website that you can come in and look at all the meetings and things, but it's office hours when we're all working and it's in Coldwater. So I said, maybe you should start putting that stuff on your website. Nowadays it takes a few seconds, so hopefully that's gonna get done, but there's more things. I mean, they have a $1.6 million building over there that there was nobody in except for this meeting and a $4,500 flagpole and just lots of crazy spending done and just something to be aware of and follow. I have it recorded, so if you care to listen to it, it was 4-hour meetings. They were in closed session for 2 hours and came back, and I have the whole thing on my website. So I just think it's something you guys really need to keep tabs on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Did you get a response from David?
No, not yet.
Okay.
There's a phone right behind you, I think his number's 133. And the phone number.
I'm gonna go to the restroom real quick
Okay.
while we're figuring this out.
What are we doing?
Going in a closed session.
133?
Attorney-client, closed session. Attorney-client, closed session.
Whether or
You
not we
get a
can.
dial tone?
We can.
Are you supposed to get a dial
This
tone?
is, we're on
I think
YouTube,
so.
live. So we gotta, we can't go into closed
I don't know.
session
I'm trying the
on
office
YouTube
here.
live. We gotta get that turned off.
We gotta get the cameras turned off.
Oh,
Yeah, because we're streaming the
well,
meeting.
can we even do it since it wasn't part of the agenda that we adopted?
That's what I was wondering.
I don't think we can do it.
I don't think you can.
Probably
either.
shouldn't.
Mark?
We might need to wait till the next meeting, Stephanie,
Mark?
because it wasn't,
I don't-
it's not
I
part
don't
of the
think,
agenda.
I don't think we can do it because we approved the
That's why I
agenda and the
asked.
agenda had no
Is
closed session
it
on it.
okay to wait?
I don't think we can do it.
Okay, Stephanie said it's okay to wait till the next meeting. But we
Okay.
just need to have it on the agenda for the next meeting, and then we need David to handle
That's why I
this.
asked the question the way I did, because I wasn't sure if I could or not.
Yeah, we could have it toward the
Okay,
end of the
if-
meeting.
I got a
If it-
response, I'll just tell him we'll wait
Yeah.
until July.
If you're all right to wait till July 9th? Okay. Okay.
So you'll put me on, Marnie?
Sure.
Yeah,
Marty, please.
we'll just figure it out as far as getting the YouTube shut off.
Right,
Yeah.
well then,
That'll be better. We'll have more time. And I'll have to double check on that. I'll double check on procedural. I don't think on an issue like attorney-client privilege, I don't think it has to be on the agenda.
It does.
But I'll double check.
Sure.
I'll double check.
You did
Got the OMA right here.
As I know there's,
Already.
okay, anyways. Additional business. Bruce, anything?
Well, the only thing I failed to mention is the ambulance stuff is ongoing. We're finding as we work through the contract, and we have the same contract for everybody, and I think we're gonna try to go with a different contract in the future, because there's things in there, for instance, there's one thing that requires every ambulance service to have a car situated within their territory, whatever territory they are in control of. Well, that issue doesn't work out because we have one situation where that doesn't happen, and quite frankly, where the car is located in that one situation is just as close is closer probably to that territory than some of the other cars are that in the other areas. So we're going to try to make it more specific to the particular ambulance service, and probably we'll end up taking it out for that one. The other thing that Julie expressed to me was the issue of naming the county as an additional insured. And right now we know that we've got 3 of them. We're working with the other 2. But if they can't get it through their insurance company, then we're going to have to make that adjustment in the contract as well for their specific. So we're still trying to work through just some things. The idea being here, if we're going to do a contract and both parties are going to sign it, it needs to have things in it that you can actually do, and not just have verbiage in there, sign it and then ignore it. If it's going to be a contract, then we got to have everything actually being followed in that contract. So we'll continue to work through a couple of those things. Once we get that finished, I think we'll be ready to go back to the ambulance services and sit down with it, show it to them, and go at the next round with it. So that's where we're at. This might get done by the time I die.
And I did discuss with Tim about the liability, and he's got a meeting coming up, in July, and you're gonna look into that, the liability coverage for the Addison ambulance, and he was gonna talk to Waldron on the same issue, so.
What is the reason behind having the county as a second insured?
Well, I think it's a standard, like, I just got this today from Mike Lazinski, our surveyor.
Okay.
And it's got at the bottom, additional insured form added in favor of the contract, additional insured form added in favor of the contract holder. And the contract holder is the County of Hillsdale. So I think it's a standard operating procedure that the county uses for any contractor that comes in, that they name the county as an additional insured. Now, I think that's done across the board. Now, you've been here longer than I have, is that correct?
That's,
Do that we should.
most of the ones I've seen are that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think there was some misunderstanding about that at the
Yeah.
last meeting,
So that's a
that,
recommendation of our attorney, the
yes,
county attorney.
Yes. Well,
as standard language.
this was here before I showed up, so I'm assuming. That can make me look pretty stupid, I know, but.
Yeah, all of us.
No, we discussed that with him.
With the attorney?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes,
And we have to.
Oh, with Thompson.
all the
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
We discussed it with him, and he said that, because we discussed that, do we need to, remember, there were lots of things in the contract that we said, okay, if the attorney agrees that we can take them out, that we don't need them, we'll remove. And I think there was some misunderstanding among some of the people that are like, no, we said we agreed that we weren't gonna have that. I said, no, we agreed that if the attorney agreed that we could take it out, that we would take it out. And he said no on that. He said that that is standard practice and that the county should be named additional
I
insured.
don't see where that's gonna make that big of a difference.
I'm sorry?
I say, I don't see, I mean, it's not gonna cost anybody any more
No.
money. and
No,
so-
it's not.
No,
All right.
Yeah, okay. Ruth, you got anything
No,
additional?
sir.
Julie?
I'd just like to remind everybody that our Independence Day Parade is next week on Wednesday at 6 o'clock in downtown Hillsdale. I heard that they have a really great chairperson and that the parade's gonna be awesome again this year.
And I would like it noted that I no longer have to participate in parades, and Mike Nye told me that that would be a happy moment in my life. But you do a very good job with that parade. You really do. It's a nice parade.
When's the, grand gonna be, revealed?
Oh.
Marshall.
So the grand marshals of the parade this year are all our fire departments. We're honoring all our fire departments. So it's gonna be a lot of fire trucks. I'm hoping at the beginning of the parade. All our fire departments and firefighters.
You got that sent out. I know I saw it, but I don't know if I
Yes.
saw it through the county or through the county fire. Did 911 send something out?
Yes, yes, I asked them to disperse it because
All right.
Tracy told me you could reach the most people that day, so
Okay.
I figured everyone would get it that way.
Yes. Nothing.
Anything?
Thank you.
I don't have anything either, so we'll stand adjourned, and thank you all.
at 11:07.
So we can't have a closed session because wasn't on the agenda? Is that, I went to the bathroom, so I missed.
Well, that was the
Stephanie
discussion.
said we could do it next
Next meeting?
Yeah. That
Okay,
way I'll give David time to.
Okay.
Figure out shutting us down.
okay, all
Because you
right.
don't want the closed session on you.
Right,
No,
right.
That would not be good.
And,
Thanks for watch.